Oh, yeah. You remember when I asked you to find out who the elected oaths of office are in every state, every city, every county in the federal government? For the last 40 years? Yes. And I asked you to find out uh, the actual identities of every person that works in the post office, all 438,000 of them for maybe the last 20 years? Yeah. Could you go through and reconfirm that you have the actual identities of every sworn oath of the United States Post Office for the last 20 years? Yeah. And do you remember when I asked you about getting the actual identities of every employee of Homeland Security since it started in 2003? Yeah. Could you run through and make sure you know exactly who they are and all the FBI agents for the last 40 years? Yes. And every senior executive service federal employee that has sworn that they would support and defend the Constitution of the United States? Yeah. For about the last 25 years? Yes. Every sheriff in the United States for the last 30 years. Could you get me their actual identity? Sure. And every police chief of every city in the United States for the last let's say 30 years. Yeah. And every mandatory reporter, every teacher, every police officer, every doctor, and all of those that are obligated to inform law enforcement if they know of missing or abducted children. Yeah, I'd like to know that for the last 30 years. Yes. And could you get me every appointed oath of office, inclusive of every czar that has been appointed to office for the last 40 years? And every 1 to 4 star general and admiral that's been vetted by the United States Congress for the last 25 years? Yep. And could you get me just a second here? All of those in law enforcement, inclusive of the railroad police, the National Park Service, Department of Transportation, and every individual within the United States that has the authority to arrest citizens for any known crime? Yeah! I'm going to need that for the last 30 years. I was reading this law dictionary, and there's what's called the beneficial interest, the right to profits from the estate or property without owning the estate or property. Right. I'm going to need to know if any of those persons have died in the last 5 years, and if any of them died during the next 20 years. I want to put a claim in on every estate of every oath of office in the United States. Now, if they know that my guaranteed constitutional rights are being violated, and they decided that they're not going to enforce what is guaranteed, if they die, I will put a claim in on every estate for every asset of every person that dies from this moment forward. And for the last 5 years, if they had any knowledge of my last name, if they had watched any Oprah shows, if they had participated in any fish shows, or they had any knowledge that the laws of the United States are not being enforced. Now, I'm going to put a claim in on every estate. Do you understand? Now, I'm going to need to know all 1.5 million sworn oaths of office. I need to know their actual identity right now. I need to know if they died in the last 5 years. And I need to know when each and every one of them dies for the next 20 years. Because I will put a claim in on every estate of every oath everywhere in this nation.